trying to make one of the most relatable use cases around metaverses, which is on education, right? And he's trying to build educational experiences on top of a metaverse. And we're super excited to hear from you, Tanay.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Santosh. Santosh is the co-founder of Autonomy Network. It's a decentralized network for creators to build tokens and grow their communities. And we have Santosh here to tell us more about, from a creator standpoint, how things will pan out in the metaverse. So really glad to have all of you here. I think we can just start off with Harsar. I think Harsar, TechM announced the Techverse in Feb 2022, and to allow its customers to leverage the metaverse. How are you seeing the adoption curve evolve for corporates and businesses from the perspective of technologies that they need to adopt, and what are the initial use cases you see today?
Well, thanks, Jairaj, and it's very exciting to be here with some very bright youngsters, and I can tell you that I'm already in awe of all the stuff that all of them have done. But coming specifically to your question, we've seen a lot of interest to adopt the metaverse from businesses, especially in the B2C and the B2B2C area, which is really the consumer metaverse, as well as the B2B, and many use cases I'll talk about, that is the industrial metaverse. As many companies are looking at the next frontier in customer experience, and we all know how important that is, especially in the digital channels, as the digital channels have really become key post the pandemic. Now, Metaverse seems to have been the de facto channel on offer, which really the reason is it offers near real and immersive experiences, and whether it's through photorealism or the single or multi-party interactions. At TechM, we telecom, banking, and real estate sectors. I can give you a few examples. For a very large public sector bank, we helped them to launch a new channel of banking using the metaverse as part of their omni-channel strategy. This large public bank incidentally became the first global bank to leverage metaverse. And this purely helped us to change their brand image from an old legacy yet reliable bank to an absolutely top-notch tech-savvy bank. Their metaverse experiences also helped the customers to understand their offerings in a matter of a few clicks, rather than spend hours, months, and weeks trying to understand it. On the other hand, we've developed a tech support metaverse for SAP. In fact, they showcased it in their recent pilot. We've developed many retail showroom metaverses for our telecom customers. And on the industrial side, I think we believe strongly that the industrial metaverse has the potential to usher in what we call Industry 4.0 through a convergence of IoT, cloud, data lakes, etc. We have seen BMW, for example, their factory of the future in metaverse, Volvo through their DigiCar experiment, Ericsson when they rolled out their 5G on metaverse. And this is all expected to really grow very fast. And finally, we are helping NEOM, which is the world's first cognitive city, through metaverse by enhancing their customer experiencing, digital prototyping, and precision twins for a faster construction. So clearly, Meta seems to be the new mantra everywhere, and at TechM we clearly see this taking on a lot of feet and a lot of excitement.
That's incredible to hear, sir. I think that is a perspective that's very hard to get, and I think the work that Tech Mahindra is doing, I think it's incredible, and we'd love to see all of this go on a grander scale, as you mentioned, right, across the different verticals that it's going to. So thank you so much for your take, sir. Next on, I think we'll move on to Gaurav. Gaurav, as I mentioned, tell us how the world's first metaverse for food. What was the number one? What was the inspiration behind such an idea, and If you can tell everyone, because I think not everyone will instantly get what exactly it is that you're trying to do here. What has OneRare done so far, and how do you intend to create the food wars of the future, right?
Great. Thank you for having me, Jairaj. So, I think the first question that we almost get from everyone is that everything else is possible to do in the metaverse, but you can't eat food, and which is a quite valid question. But essentially, what we are building is a platform around the food industry that allows it to actually leverage all the technologies that are evolving and take them to the next level. So, for instance, around the pandemic, what we saw was that there was a major tectonic shift in the food industry. What happened is that a lot of dine-in restaurants became less relevant, and a lot of the focus shifted to food delivery. Simultaneously, the food models also started evolving in the same direction, and it led to the creation of the virtual restaurant industry, where instead of actually having a physical place, a lot of restaurants went virtual. They also became decentralized in the sense that you have a restaurant and you have food that is actually made and delivered by chefs across the world. So some examples of that is like the Mr. Beast burger. That Mr. Beast, who's a very popular YouTuber, came out with this burger, and anybody can become a chef on the Mr. Beast burger platform and start delivering food for them in a decentralized way. So whenever an industry actually leaps into the next era, new business models evolve. I think metaverse is actually just the next evolution of the internet. Facebook going has simply given it a new term, and it has given it a space where different technologies can sort of converge and give a new experience. So I'd like to divide the metaverse into three major aspects. I think the first aspect is going from 2D to 3D. I think so far we are used to a lot of text-based applications. If we order food, we go on a text-based platform to order our food. That is going to evolve, and we are going to move from 2D to 3D. All your applications, social media, in the next 2 to 5 years, you're going to find more and more aspects of 3Dification. The second aspect of metaverse that usually people don't talk about is payment processing. A lot of payments has been done by Web2 applications for the longest time. That is going to change, and we are going to sort of evolve into the next era where a lot of transactions are going to happen in a direct manner. And the third aspect of metaverse that I feel is very important, which is also the application of blockchain, is community ownership. Now, all of us have, and those of us who have been in the North have gone to Nirula's, where you get like a birthday Sunday, or like a Happy Meal where you get a collectible. All of these things are about to move into NFTs. And just like the recent Starbucks announcement of their first NFT platform, a lot of the rewards are going to essentially move into the NFT space. So I think that is the third aspect of the metaverse, which is community-based ownership. So if you are actually a customer for a restaurant or for a food industry, you will also be able to own certain NFTs, own loyalty NFTs, own essentially tokens that allow you a say on the platform. So OneRare essentially, is leading the gamification of the food and beverage industry, where we are assimilating aspects of 3D, of NFTs, and of payment processing to help move this industry into the next phase and discover new business models.
Thank you so much for that, Gaurav. I think once again, you recently had your mainnet launch. We're really looking forward to you reaching more and more heights there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, I think Tanay would love to get your take, as we all know how EdTech has truly disrupted and generated large outcomes. Can you tell us about your thesis with Invact and how you visualize education being transformed and upgraded? Today, even here, we're having this conference, but how do you see this experience relating to the different buckets of EdTech or students across the world?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I just had this very small vision a few months back that metaverse should not be restricted to people who have access, and should be used for people who do not have it. And if you see in India, a lot of people do not have access to all sorts of technologies and VR and also. So I think this, where we are attending this, is a great example of how I think about, or how we think about metaverse making access possible for students, right? This is a very web-based interface, quite basic interface. It's also a low poly interface wherein you can just load it in few minutes, and still it serves a purpose. It serves the purpose of having a community together, having those interactions together. And education is more about community than anything else. Content is everywhere. It's the community which drives accountability, and that's what we are creating at Invact. The college experience, the university like experience, which is not accessible to a lot of folks around this country, can be done through the Invact Metaverse, which we have built. And we have just released it like few weeks back to our students, and folks are loving it. There's also an unidentified or unseen brag factor coming up that, hey, we have cracked to this amazing college, this campus, which is online, but yes, it's still my college. I have a university experience now, right? And that's where I think it's too early to make predictions. I think I'm not a visionary of sorts, an engineer mostly, but I think this is something which people would love, and people would like that. They can run into people, they have this serendipity, because online interactions have loss of serendipity. And also it becomes boring because it became a lot scripted, right? Over time, we all had Zoom fatigue and Google Meet fatigue over the COVID period. Think about students. At least our work is engaging. Education in itself is boring, to be honest. And if you subtract the community, the college life, the experience of running into people on tapris and movie theaters, then what do you have? Like, we all remember our college just for the experience of it. So a lot of students are loving it, and I think that's where we'll go with the metaverse approach at Invact, wherein we make community accessible to folks in tier 3 cities with very basic laptops or basic phones through a web interface. That's what we have built.
I think that's a very, very interesting point there. With metaverse is not just about enhancing the experience, but also democratizing it. And I think that's a very, very unique approach. And hands down, we look forward to seeing Invact really build those out and really scale it across to more and more students.
Thank you.
I think Vaibhav, next, I think would love to get your take. You're not unknown to people working in Web3, right? So, but you found a very unique fit into this ecosystem, right? And you guys are doing a bunch of stuff. So, can you just provide the audience here with some throw some light on what you guys are doing, and then maybe the key learnings that you think that can be leveraged by developers who are trying to build in this domain, right? With everyone that's trying to approach building something here has something else to offer. So I think Cope, being that studio that's bringing everyone and everything together, working on so many parallel fronts, you can guide us there.
For sure. Thanks so much, Gaurav. So a bit of a background about myself and Cope, right? We started off as a Web3 product studio, and we were very design heavy and 3D AR and VR heavy. So we've technically always been building for what we now call the Metaverse. I think just back when the jargon was different, right? So over the course of time, with Web3 becoming a little more relevant in our DM, we shifted our focus and started building, I would say, immersive and engaging experiences for folks building across, I would say, different pillars of, working. So taking, or rather stemming from Tanay's input as far as education is concerned, we've had a fair share of, impact that way, building immersive experiences for, say, Vedanta for that matter, right? So I think it's incredible to see, how the ecosystem at large is evolving and how folks from designers to product managers to engineers are all evolving and adapting to add a flair to map to it, right? Where everybody has tons to contribute, and I think every now and again you find, of course, give it enough time and you'll find repetitive use cases, but every now and again you'll find very unique ones that sort of stand out and have like value. So like Gaurav's, for example, is something that truly stands out for me. I think being a person who's, I would say, off the books, somebody a fan of eating or trying new food experiences. That's something that would definitely captivate me from a metaverse perspective and see how that scales. So at Cope in itself, what we do is functionally, so now that sort of joined forces with Polygon, and we're, I would say, placing strategic bets on folks trying to build some of these incredible quote unquote outlandish ideas, just to see how they're innovating and how we can truly help them find success and how we can contribute to the ecosystem at large, with how these experiences would add a ton of value that way over time. Right now, it's still early days across the board. So, building right now is essentially setting the foundation and the framework for how things move ahead ecosystem-wide, not let alone just metaverses.
Thank you so much for that, Vaibhav. I think Santosh would love to kind of for you to take on, which is something a very very different perspective here, which is how do you think you've got an immense understanding of the needs of creators, and you've gone really deep into understanding those both from the current standpoint and what they might require in the future. With autonomy, that's exactly what you've tried to envision and you're trying to scale out, right? So, could you talk a little bit more about how creators will utilize the metaverse and maybe touch upon the importance of community plays for these virtual worlds, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I think creator economy plays a key role. It's already playing a key role in the way internet has shaped up so far. It's playing a key role in how Web3 adoption can actually come probably now to near future, and how eventually metaverse can shape up, right? So the work we do at Autonomy is at the intersection of creator economy and Web3. So we build no-code product lines for creators to come and build value on Web3. The way I look at, I want to talk about first how I'm looking at metaverse, and then would love to talk about how Web3 could become the backend for this metaverse, which I look at it as a front-end revolution, like how Gaurav mentioned about 3Dification of internet, right? So starting with metaverse, I mean, one of the biggest questions most people ask is what is the difference between a game or a virtual world and a metaverse, right? And that's where I think about, I mean, if internet were to become like a game, probably that's how I look at metaverse, right? So no one company or a one game or one world is a metaverse, but it's like a shared space which will probably shape up with more open standards, interoperability, etc., built on the back of a backend revolution, which is currently happening. That's Web3. This narrative of open metaverse was going around Web3 communities way before enterpriseification of metaverse started with Meta or etc. We had a lot of platforms talking about how community-owned spaces, right? It actually started with probably community ownership as the foundational piece. How does community-owned shared spaces in the virtual world will look like, and how they get monetized over time is probably how Web3 and Metaverse started. But I think the backend revolution of Web3 makes it easier to transition to Metaverse now, because why now, when we say that, right? I mean, even if you look at a lot of Metaverse companies today building on a browser-based interfaces are essentially like how our initial games used to be, right? So why now? Why Metaverse is getting that momentum now is because it started having that backend of digital ownership as a stack, or community ownership and the ability to share value at an internet scale probably didn't exist before. And I think NFTs really accelerated this a lot more. I think it has become like a Web3 native file format for various ownerships, right? Sure, fungible tokens have done the initial push to enable teams could raise capital in a crowdsourced from anyone, anywhere in the world kind of way. But I think NFTs truly made mainstream users look at this space, right? I think, again, one more thing we often talk about as a space is builders and users not often think alike in the early stages of innovation. So I think most builders were looking at a lot of serious use cases around composability of DeFi protocols. A ton of these serious, really critical infrastructure was building on one point, but I think NFTs really took off as mainstream users started adopting to that. But now I think is a phase where NFTs are seeing correction. They have proved their capability as a suitable file format for digital art and to an extent game items. But I think we're yet to see the next level of utilities for these NFTs first. The way we look at creators is there's still a long way to go, right? For example, this space of both Web3 as well as Metaverse is still kind of built by developers for developers or by initial innovators for early adopters, let's say. For this to change, I think I really like to specify on how no code and simplified user experiences will play a role as Web3 community keeps referring to awaiting killer apps, right? When do we see killer apps? We see killer apps when user experience gets simplified. Like one of the recent experiences, like an experiment we've done is out of every 100 users probably coming on to create a non-custodial wallet, we see not more than 5 people actually completing that process, right? And we try to first simplify these. And I think these rails still have to form while community ownership and capital, I think the hype around the future potential of Metaverse does two things. I think one, it enables a lot of capital to move into the space. Two, it allows limitless experimentation. So we'll have to wait and see how many of them eventually scale. But we are at the earliest stage of what I call as open metaverse, while gaming is also an tangential intersection to this, not to be confused as an addressable market for an open metaverse, while gaming existed for a very long time.
Thank you so much for that, Santosh. I think that really kind of ties it up for us from the perspective of not just looking at this panel. I think we've not just looked at different ways that metaverses are evolving, but also how we can play a role in shaping them and helping them come together. And I think that's where even the final thing that you said on open metaverses, that's very important, so they don't end up being closed virtual worlds, right? So once again, I'd like to thank all panel members here. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your experience and your insights.